Consciousness and time. Perceiving the present moment. Time. It appears as something measured on calendars and tracked by clocks. Yet at the deepest level it is a mental experience. Humans do not merely live through time. They also feel it, understand it, and interpret it. At this point, consciousness and time become inseparable. To perceive time is, in a sense, to be aware of the now. What is time perception? Time perception is the ability to judge how long an event lasts or how much time has passed. This judgment is not made via an internal clock in the literal sense, but through the brain's internal rhythms, memory, levels of attention and emotional states. The feeling that time is slowing down or speeding up is closely related to changes in our state of consciousness. When we are bored, time seems to drag. When we are excited, hours can pass in what feels like an instant. For consciousness, time is not a fixed measurement, but a variable experience. The brain's internal clock. Certain brain regions are thought to be responsible for time perception. In particular, the basal ganglia, prefrontal cortex, and cerebellum play roles in this process. The brain may use neural oscillators, rhythmic signal-producing circuits, to estimate durations like a second or a minute. But the frequency of these oscillators can change depending on stress, attention, medication, or psychological state. In other words, the brain's clock can speed up like a metronome or slow down. Attention and the awareness of now. Time perception is closely tied to attention. The more scattered our attention, the more uncontrolled and fragmented time feels. When we manage to remain in the present, for instance during a deep conversation, while focusing on a work of art, or walking in nature, our sense of time becomes clearer and more intense. Mindfulness practices, by directing attention to the present moment, deepen our experience of time. This makes the relationship between consciousness and time not merely a passive one, but something that can be trained. Time, memory, and identity. The mental experience of now is shaped not only by immediate sensory input, but also by memories of the past and expectations of the future. Without memories of the past, we would have no sense of identity. Without plans for the future, we could not make decisions. Thus, time is not merely one dimension of consciousness. It is a fundamental pillar of the experience of self. Mind and machine. Is consciousness in AI possible? Can a machine think? And can it feel? More than that, can it become aware of itself? These questions stand not only at the center of technology, but also at the center of philosophy, ethics, and neuroscience. As artificial intelligence grows more sophisticated day by day, the question of what consciousness is gains a new dimension. Is non-human consciousness possible? Intelligence without consciousness. Today's AI, no matter how impressive they may be, today's artificial intelligence systems are not conscious. A language model can write a poem. An image recognition system can distinguish a cat from a dog. And a robot can mimic emotional reactions. But all of this is nothing more than data processing and response generation. These systems have no awareness of their own state. They do not know what they are thinking. They do not generate feelings, possess intentions, or ask themselves why. Thus, current AI can imitate mental processes but does not possess consciousness. Simulating consciousness versus actually having it. For AI to be conscious, it is not enough that it gives the right answers. It would need to possess mental qualities such as awareness, subjective experience, intention, and a sense of self. Is this possible? Some futurists and transhumanists argue that it is only a matter of time. They claim that once computers become sufficiently complex, they may become conscious. Critics, however, see this as a confusion between consciousness and intelligence. For them, consciousness does not arise simply from processing power, but from the capacity for subjective experience. Neurocybernetics and artificial neural networks. Attempts to endow AI with consciousness often focus on imitating the human brain. Artificial neural networks mathematically model the connections between neurons in the brain. Yet this approach still falls short in a fundamental way. In the human brain, information is not merely processed, it is felt, experienced, remembered. Neurocybernetics seeks to build bridges between biological nervous systems and digital systems. Brain-computer interfaces aim to connect the human mind directly to digital environments. But for now, this is limited to transferring information, not consciousness itself. The Chinese room, does it really understand? The philosopher John Searle's famous Chinese room thought experiment adds an important layer to this discussion. Imagine a person in a room who does not know Chinese. They receive Chinese characters from a slot, compare them with a rule book, and send out the appropriate characters. To outside observers, it appears as though they understand Chinese perfectly. But in reality, they have no understanding. They are simply manipulating symbols according to rules. In the same way, an AI system may process inputs and outputs, but not understand. This experiment deepens doubts about whether AI can truly possess inner meaning and consciousness. Disorders of consciousness, coma, vegetative state, and awareness. Consciousness often feels as if it is always there. Only when a severe trauma, neurological injury, or medical condition occurs do we realize how fragile and delicate this balance truly is. Clinical states such as coma, vegetative state, and minimally conscious state show the limits of the brain's capacity to generate consciousness. These states raise profound issues not only for medicine, but for ethics, philosophy, and human rights. Coma, the complete shutdown of consciousness. Coma is a state in which brain activity falls to a minimum, and the person shows no signs of wakefulness or awareness. The individual does not respond to the environment and has no awareness of their inner state. Their eyes are closed, there is no purposeful movement, and they do not react to sounds. Coma typically arises from traumatic brain injury, brain hemorrhage, severe infections, poisoning, lack of oxygen, and similar events. Medically, it is the complete suspension of consciousness. Vegetative state, wakefulness without awareness. In a vegetative state, the person appears to wake from sleep. Their eyes may open. There may be reflexive movements, and sleep-wake cycles can be observed. But awareness is still absent. In other words, the person is awake, but not conscious. This state can last days, weeks, months, and sometimes become permanent, known then as a persistent vegetative state. Such a person does not understand their environment or respond in a purposeful way, but many bodily functions continue: breathing, digestion, blinking, and so on. This has been described as a living body with a silent mind. Minimally conscious state, a gray zone in between. A minimally conscious state differs from a vegetative state in that some voluntary responses can be observed, though they are inconsistent. A patient may sometimes react to external stimuli, recognize their own name, or make eye contact. But these responses are irregular and not sustained. This gray zone makes diagnosis difficult. Are these responses truly conscious or merely automatic? Modern imaging techniques, such as fMRI and EEG, have shown that some individuals who appear behaviorally unresponsive may in fact have internal awareness. This raises the notion of a locked-in inner world. Ethical questions. Where does consciousness begin and end? Disorders of consciousness are not only neurological issues, they raise ethical and legal questions as well. When is a person truly considered alive in the full sense? If awareness is absent, do personal rights still apply? Who has the authority to decide about life support? These questions show that consciousness is not only a scientific matter, but also a deeply human one. Consciousness is not only a state of mind, it is the foundation of personality, morality, and our concept of humanity itself. At the edge of reality, simulation theory, and the brain-in-a-vat. Everything we see, hear, and feel, is it truly real? Or are these merely parts of a simulation inside our brain? Thinkers and scientists who seek to understand the nature of consciousness inevitably confront the same boundary question: how real is the thing we call reality? A world constructed inside the brain. As we have already seen, the external world does not reach us directly. The brain receives sensory signals, interprets them, organizes them, and completes them. In other words, we do not live the external world itself, but a mental representation of it. Some philosophers take this to mean reality is not direct, but mediated. And if everything forms inside the brain, then the existence of an external world may be nothing more than an assumption. The brain in a vat. This hypothesis is one of modern philosophy's most radical thought experiments. Imagine a brain completely separated from the body and placed in a glass vat. Electrodes are attached, feeding it sensory signals as if they were coming from a real world. that brain would believe it was living a real life. According to this experiment, nothing we live or see needs to be truly real. Our entire experience could consist of electrical simulations, and we might never realize it. The brain-in-a-vat scenario is the modern version of Descartes's evil demon thought experiment. It suggests that the external world might be entirely deceptive. Simulation theory. Are we living in a program? With advances in technology, this philosophical speculation has gained renewed popularity. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom made a striking proposal. If a civilization becomes advanced enough, it could create highly detailed computer simulations of its ancestors' lives. In that case, the vast majority of beings who think they are real might actually be born inside these simulations. So, could we be living in a simulation? Some technology figures, such as Elon Musk, have argued that this is almost certain. This theory cannot currently be tested scientifically, but as a philosophical tool, it powerfully challenges the boundaries of consciousness and reality. Mind, reality, and doubt. Whether we are in a simulation or not, these ideas reveal something clear. Consciousness does not merely perceive the external world, it also questions it and constructs it. The brain does not simply open a window onto reality, it builds the frame of that window as well. Thus, the limit of reality is, in a sense, the limit of the mind. The future of mind. New theories and technologies of consciousness. For thousands of years, humans have tried to define, understand, and explain consciousness. But today the question is no longer just, what is consciousness? A new question has emerged. Can we reconstruct consciousness? The extraordinary pace of technology is opening doors not only to understanding consciousness, but to manipulating it, enhancing it, and perhaps even copying it. New approaches in theories of consciousness. Traditional theories of mind are giving way to holistic, interdisciplinary models. Two important examples are Integrated Information Theory, IIT. According to IIT, consciousness is related to both the amount of information a system carries and how that information is integrated. Any system that carries complex and integrated information may, to some degree, possess consciousness. Global Workspace Theory, GWT. GWT suggests that consciousness arises from the activity of a shared information workspace that connects different brain regions. A thought becomes conscious when it is broadcast into this global workspace. These theories move consciousness research from a purely philosophical domain into a systematic neuroscientific framework. Brain-computer interfaces, controlling with thought. Today, brain waves can be transmitted directly to computers. A person can move a robotic arm using only their thoughts. This technology is known as a brain-computer interface, BCI. BCIs enable paralyzed patients to communicate, allow for machine control, and even mind-based interaction in digital environments. Yet, this is just the beginning. The long-term goal is this: to integrate the brain with digital systems. uploading and erasing memories. One of the cornerstones of consciousness is memory. Without memory, there can be no identity. But what if memories could be uploaded or erased? Some experiments in animals have shown that fear memories can be removed at the genetic or circuit level. In other cases, new memories have been artificially induced using optogenetic techniques. Applications in humans are still in their early stages. But these developments hint at a future in which we might manipulate memory and thus aspects of consciousness. Mind uploading and digital immortality. The most radical scenario is this. Could all the connections in the brain be digitally reconstructed in an artificial environment? This idea is known as mind uploading. In theory, the entirety of a person's mental content could be transferred to a computer. The body would die, but the person would continue to exist digitally. This notion of technological immortality is increasingly discussed as fields like quantum computing, artificial synapses, and nanotechnology advance. But a crucial question remains. Would a digital copy of your mind still be you, or just an imitation of you? Consciousness, the future and humanity. Consciousness is humanity's most precious possession. To understand it, multiply it, or recreate it. These ideas are as risky as they are exciting, because transforming the mind does not only change the individual, it changes what we mean by being human. In this journey, we have not only examined the biology of the brain, but also the philosophical and technological horizons of consciousness. From neurons to neural networks, from self-awareness to simulation theories, from artificial intelligence to digital immortality, we have explored the many layers of the human mind. And we have seen that consciousness is not a phenomenon that can be easily defined. It is at once an object of scientific inquiry, one of philosophy's oldest questions, and the key through which humanity seeks to understand itself. Perhaps explaining consciousness will not be the achievement of neuroscience or technology alone, but the greatest collective endeavor in human history. For consciousness is the foundation of both our individual identity and our civilizational journey. In the end, we might say this. Consciousness is not merely a phenomenon produced by the brain. It is the deepest mirror of humanity's search for itself.